Chapter 19, Crew Resource Management and Leading the Change. We're going to talk about the origins of crew resource management. We'll discuss the concepts involved in researching and validating crew resource management. We'll list DuPont's dirty dozen of human factors that contribute to tragedy. We'll describe the 6-point crew resource management model that can be used in the fire service, and we'll discuss the fire officer's role in recommending change within a department. Crew resource management is a behavioral approach to reducing human error in high-risk or high-consequence activities. Leading to change is recommending changes and developing a process to establish that change. So where's all this come from? Where does this concept come from? In 1978, United Airlines Flight 173 crashed because the people flying it became engrossed in a burned-out light bulb and did not pay attention to the fact that the plane was running low on fuel. In response, NASA developed crew resource management. Crew resource management became mandatory training. It was resisted by senior pilots until a spectacular crash landing in 1989. The crew attributed their success in this incident to their crew resource management training. Researching and validating these concepts, the aviation industry's 80% reduction in accidents is partly attributable to crew resource management. Crew resource management trains team members how to achieve maximum mission effectiveness in a time-constrained environment under stress. Human error. Gordon DuPont noted similarities between errors in the cockpit and in the maintenance hangar. DuPont's dirty dozen, or list of reasons and ways humans make mistakes. So the dirty dozen, one starts with lack of communication, and we've talked about many times how communication is a very important role and an important process to everything we do. Complacency, getting used to the things that go around you to the point where you fail to recognize when things are different. The lack of knowledge, not knowing certain aspects of your job. Distraction. Distraction comes in many different ways, and whether it be noise, whether it be mental distractions, these come in several different forms. The lack of teamwork and not working together. We know that in the fire service, we highly recommend working in teams and maintaining our team integrity. Fatigue is another one that hits almost everyone. When we get fatigued, we tend to make more mistakes. We don't think everything through. We miss things. The lack of the proper resources. Pressure, the underlying pressure of quickly making decisions and getting things done. The lack of assertiveness, stress itself, and the lack of awareness. Another thing is norms. And we get so used to these norms and we become complacent that we fail to recognize when something is out of the ordinary. Dr. James Reason took a systems approach. High-tech systems have many defensive type layers. Each layer is like a slice of Swiss cheese, if you will. Active failures and latent conditions, 2 reasons why holes will appear in the layer of defense. Active failures and latent conditions, which may lie dormant within a system for many years. Crew resource management is basically an error management model with 3 activities: mitigation, which is the action taken by responders to minimize the effect of an emergency. Crew resource management model covers communication skills, teamwork, task allocation, critical decision making, and situational awareness, and afterwards with a debriefing. So we have to concentrate and have good communication skills. We've talked about teamwork, task allocation, critical decision making, and oftentimes the more experienced person will use what we know as recognition prime decision making. They arrive to certain determinations based on the experience that they have in the exact same situations. Situational awareness is maintaining and keeping an awareness of the things that are going on around us. And then the last step is the debriefing. Everybody must recognize the following. No one is infallible. Technology is fallible. Catastrophes result from a chain of events. There's all these little things that happen and they come together in one occurrence to cause, bad things to happen. Everyone is obligated to speak up when they see something is wrong. Everyone must recognize the following. People who work together effectively are less likely to have accidents. Every member of the team must participate. And as company officers, when we put together our team and when we are building up our team, we have to recognize that people that work together and work together well are safer and makes for a profitable team. And this is something that we should encourage throughout the process. Every member of the team must participate. We can't have members that set off to the side and do very little while everybody else is doing their part. So each team member, although they may have strengths and weaknesses, and they may participate more in areas of their strength, the fact is that they are participating. So communication skills, we know that communication is the successful transfer and understanding of thought. We understand that we have to have a sender and a receiver, a message, some type of medium in there, and then we need to complete that circle with feedback. Airline disaster miscommunication, the misinterpretation of instructions, lack of assertiveness by crew members. There could also be distractions within the cockpit as well. The fighter pilot mentality in some of our captains. Develop a standard language and teach appropriate assertive behavior. In fire apparatus, the crew should exchange only pertinent information. Crew resource management enriched environment encourages the freedom to question. This is one of the things that we're not used to. We feel like that as far as crew resource management and our team goes, that we teach heavily the chain of command and the use of the chain of command. But within that, we also have to encourage the freedom to pose questions, especially when we see something is wrong. On the same token, over the years when we've dealt with safety in the fire service, we've always said that every firefighter on the fire ground is a safety officer. Yes, we do have appointed safety officers. However, everybody can serve that role, and anybody and everybody can stop an unsafe action. Inquiry and advocacy are skills that promote synergy, promote that every team member coming together is energized and makes things a whole lot better. However, they do require practice and they do require patience. Using buzzwords to signal discomfort opens the door to inquiry and advocacy, reserved for situations involving risk or injury. Assertive statement process, use an opening attention getter, state your concern, and then state the problem as you see it. And then next we want to state a solution, and then obtain agreement or obtain buy-in. This being assertive is not about getting your way, though. It is about, there is a legitimate concern that you see. You present this problem as you see it and the possible solution. And then the last step would be to obtain agreement or buy-in. Teamwork, leadership must earn the trust and respect and have leadership skills. We can term somebody a leader and in their leadership position, but leadership is something that you take the existing relationships, and through your behaviors and those relationships, you are able to coerce and get people to work and do the things that we need done. Respect is based on competencies of personal, technical, and social. So again, not only on the personal level, people may respect somebody because of their technical expertise, their knowledge of the job, and their ability to execute certain tasks at the job. And then as well as socially, those relationships that we forge amongst our team. Trust and respect. Mentoring. This helps others develop skills, especially those that may not have all of the tools that they need. It's up to us who have those tools to share those with others. Lead by example. As a leader, it is best practice not to ask somebody to do something that you are not willing to do. Always be willing to do, if not standing beside them, doing what you're asking them to do. Admit to making mistakes. And for some people, this is a difficult task, but when we make mistakes, and we know we make mistakes, it's time to admit that and come up with a good solution, working solution, and move forward. Share your knowledge. I've worked with people in leadership positions before that have felt like if they share their knowledge, that they're sharing and that they are disseminating out, or that they are sharing or giving away their power. And so they would keep everybody in the team in the dark and only need to know basis. And in turn, this individually makes them feel more powerful, but in reality, it makes them a lot less powerful. These are usually people that like to micromanage you as well. Handling conflict, we need to focus on what is right, not who is right. And that's the big thing, is a lot of times with conflict and arguments, it'll be, the main focus will be on somebody has to be right. It's not on what is actually right. Establish an open climate for error prevention. And again, it comes with allowing folks to point things out when they see things could be wrong or could be dangerous. They point it out, they didn't see something, we point that out, okay, it wasn't as unsafe as they thought, but they were able to point it out. And I think the key there is the process, the communication process, that we are encouraging our folks to point those things out. Responsibility, that a final decision making does rest on the leader. This is no different than any other leadership situation. The foundation to manage emergency operations, we risk a lot to save a lot. And this is something that comes through Bruticini. We risk a lot to save a lot, that we know that it is savable, and we think about the savable life. We risk little to save little, and we risk none to save none. And that could be either property or a life that we know is no way possible salvageable. Take a calculated risk to save that salvageable property. And in most cases, do a risk assessment analysis and figure out, is this going to be worth putting people at risk or not? And to what degree are we willing to do that? Risk nothing at all to save what is already and absolutely lost. Being a follower, followers in the team should perform self-assessment in 4 areas: physical condition, mental condition, attitude, and understanding human behavior. Physical condition, in this job, you have to be physically fit. And there may be folks in our team members that are not, as their condition may not be as good as it should be. And this is something that could be worked on. Same thing with a mental condition: fatigue, family problems, sickness or illness, or things that are going on outside of work can be a factor. And a big factor is attitude. You have to have an overall good attitude about the situation. If you constantly bring and take negativity into the equation, then if you're bringing it in, you're going to be spitting it out. Understand human behavior. Each individual must have a healthy appreciation for personal safety, a healthy concern for safety of the crew, an honest concern that we want to keep everybody safe. There needs to be within the team a respect for authority. Again, that chain of command and that open show of respect. Willingness to accept orders and the knowledge of the limits of authority. We need to have the desire to help the leader be successful. Good communication skills comes into play. Ability to provide constructive feedback. And with that, the ability to admit errors. Some people don't take constructive feedback well. That is something that we can work with our folks to help them better understand that with constructive feedback, it's not about pointing out mistakes. So it's not necessarily a pointing out that somebody is wrong or did something wrong, but it is more so in how to improve things the next time that it comes along. Ability to keep the ego in check. And for some folks, this is a difficult task. And we see this in all age groups. A lot of people will argue that, well, the younger age group, and there may be a little bit more ego driven at times, but I think with forging the correct relationships that we're able to bring egos in check across the board. Each individual must also need or have ability to balance assertiveness with authority. I mean, let's face it, there comes a time, especially as a leader, that you have to stress the authority. This is what we're going to do. Let's execute it now. Against the times that you can be more assertive. Maintain and keep a learning attitude. Anytime that we find ourselves believing that we know everything about a certain subject, that should be a detail that concerns you, because that should be a red flag. You're not going to know everything there is to know about everything, and we may very well meet mastery of a skill, a situation, or levels in leadership, but still not learn and know every single thing there is to know. And be flexible. The adaptability and the flexibility, especially when things change. And I promise you, things are going to change. Firefighting is dynamic. Things are going to change in an instant. We're going to have to change and make decisions with it. Allocation of tasks. Dividing responsibilities in a way to accomplish the tasks effectively. And remember, safety is compromised with a task overload. Try to keep span of control in mind at 3 to 5 optimal, and try not to overload tasks on your team. Knowing one's own limits and the capacity of the team is the first step. And this will go all the way back from one of the first things we talked about, and that was relationships and knowing your people. If you serve alongside people long enough and you pay attention and you learn those through relationships, you're going to know what their limits are. You're going to know what those buttons are that get pushed, and firefighters are very good at it. They figure out something that you don't like, they keep pushing that button. But we need to know our team members to that degree. Performance is enhanced through training classes and exercises. On the practical side of things, we like to practice until we meet mastery, and that's where someone can perform the various steps of a skill without mistake continuously or over and over. And so that's the level that our goal is when it comes to training. Critical decision making. The emergency scenes demand rapid decision making by the crew leaders. Fire officers and military combat officers use a similar decision making process. These two decision making models are one I've talked about, which is recognition prime decision making, and then a naturalistic decision making process. Your decision making is improved through gaining experience, constantly training, improving your communication skills, and engaging in pre-incident pre-planning. The more experience that we gain, the more times that we go through certain situations, we learn and we adapt, and we learn to adapt to how to do things to be successful. So the experience and learning from our experiences is a big thing. Train, train, and train. You can't do training from the recliner. Tabletop training is beneficial, but you need to get out and do training and do the skills. Improving your communication skills. Make sure that you're communicating back and forth and that you have feedback. Communication will provide an enhanced problem identification, and you may even identify problems quicker. It's going to lead to better control of an incident, improved situational awareness, more rapidly identified hazards, and rapidly assessed resource capability. And a lot of this, again, will go back to our experience and knowing our teams. Communication will provide more rapidly developed solutions, improved decision-making capabilities, and then it'll reduce surprises and unanticipated problems. And so when our folks come to us in this communication process and let us know, hey, this about this, or here's what I think about this. I don't think this is going to work, or I don't think this is going to be safe. We need to take that in, complete the loop, think about it, give feedback as to why or why not, or those kind of things, and give it consideration. With situational awareness, this is the accurate perception of what is going on around you. It is paying attention to what is going on around you. This affects performance and decision making. When it is not maintained, errors occur. On the emergency scene, situational awareness is a very important thing. We look at, we fight the fire. We assess problems in the time available, and we're making these decisions rather quickly. Gather up information from all the sources and choose the best option. Monitor the results after the plan. And I always tell you, especially when we're on a fire ground or a rescue situation, that everybody involved, even if they've not been assigned a task yet and they're standing ready, pay attention to what's going on. Don't be standing around talking and not paying attention. Look at the overall scene. What tasks are being performed? Is everything being performed safely? Pay attention to radio traffic that is going on as well. Situational awareness loss factors, distractions. And the modern fireground and rescue scene can be very distracting with everything that's going on. One of the things that can happen is we can get fixation. We can get so fixed on a problem at hand or what's going on that we miss several things. We can be overloaded, and that's the point where we need to delegate tasks out possibly. And using improper procedure, um, cutting corners basically, unresolved discrepancies, and nobody fighting the fire. We got all this stuff going on, but nobody's putting water on the fire as an example. Recommending change, the fire officer is in the best position to lead change. The fire officer has the best view of opportunities, challenges, and barriers. And the crew resource management assertive statement process provides a model for discussing sensitive or consequential issues. The 5 disconnects in implementing change. 1, culture change is viewed as a threat. We've done it this way for 20 years. Why would we want to change now? 2, bad behaviors and attitudes are tradition, and this could quite possibly be true, but it doesn't make it right, and so we have to, move to change that culture and to do away with those bad behaviors and attitudes as a tradition. Safety and mission sometimes get unbalanced, and we have to remember that yes, firefighting is inherently dangerous. We agree on that, but we can execute the mission to a safe degree. Voices of safety leadership often are muffled, and the lessons have not been yet embraced. When it comes to safety, you may have people within a group or an organization that they tend to want to revert back to the old attitudes and the tradition, and that leadership, the voices of change become muffled. That's what we have to overcome. Change begins with post-incident debriefing. In a debriefing, we want to talk about just the facts. What did you do? What went wrong? What were the things that went right? And what are you going to do about it? Oftentimes that we'll have operations that everything for the most part goes right. We might have one thing that went wrong, although it didn't cause an accident or an injury, but those things we still want to talk about. Couple things, you can start with the positive things and end with just the small negative note if that were the case. And then if there is needs for improvement, come up with a way to make those improvement. Oftentimes that improvement comes about through training. It could come about through altering an SOP or SOG. We know that crew resource management is a behavioral approach to reducing human error in high risk and high consequence activities. We know that firefighting is inherently dangerous, and so to take this approach, much like pilots have, we often have checklists, and we often are reverting back to the repetitive safety checks. Leading change involves recommending changes and developing a process to help facilitate or establish that change. Remember that crew resource management was developed initially by NASA in 1979. DuPont determined the dirty dozen human factors that contribute to tragedy. The reason identified 2 precursors to holes in a defense, active failure, and the latent condition. Crew resource management is an error management type model. A 6-point crew resource management model serves the fire service well. Developing a standard language, maintaining a sterile cockpit, if you will, and teaching appropriate assertive behavior will reduce overall errors and the miscommunications. And the big thing is all team members must work together. Task overload occurs when the fire officer exceeds his or her capacity. Crew resource management promotes team involvement, and that's involvement with everybody to be successful. The loss of situational awareness may lead to a calamity, and that's one of the reasons we have to maintain it. The fire officer is in the best position again to lead change within the fire department.